everybody. Hi, everyone. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means? It's the breakdown. My hair is like kind of crazy because I actually combed it for once. I know it's shocker, but true. And I got new lighting. What? So much has been happening. I was a little, and here we go. I was a little under the weather last week. No COVID, thank you, Jesus. It was just a regular cold. But I missed you guys so much, and I'm back. I missed everyone but Jack, so true story. But today I'm excited that we have a special guest. I'm so over these like sound effects over them. We have a special guest. Today we're breaking down Yale Stewart of the webcomic JL8. Yeah, I had to look in there. I didn't want to mess up the letters. Hi, Yale. What? Yale. Oh, I knew I was gonna mess up the name. Always mess up. Always happens. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Trying to stay warm. We actually had our first like legitimate snow day here in St. Louis today. Got about maybe 4 or 5 inches or something. Which I mean, we've had a lot worse. We've had a lot better. So now it's really just mainly trying to make sure that my dog isn't peeing everywhere.
Aww.
Because he's a mini dachshund, and
he'll get lost in that snow.
Well, there's that, but also, he doesn't really like going in the snow because he's so low to the ground.
Yeah.
And when he's out in the snow, when I'm trying to get him to go, he just eats all the snow. So his tiny little bladder is full of the water that he drinks out of his bowl and all the snow he's been eating. So he just turns into a little super soaker.
Aww.
Which I had forgotten because it happened last year. He just turned 2, so he's still very young. But luckily, we actually have little diapers for him.
Oh
so
my God, it's so
today he's just been spending all day in a little diaper, but he's gone through like 4 diapers already because he just can't stop peeing.
Oh, I was actually gonna ask, does he like try to bite at it, like try to bite it off and stuff?
No, not really. Like he's pretty accustomed to it because we usually have him wear it to bed.
Oh, okay.
Because like he's a little dog, and it just dawned on us like his bladder's only so big.
Aww.
So he just has to go to the bathroom more frequently than any dog I've ever had before. Because I grew up with collies and stuff.
Oh, the big dogs and stuff. Yeah.
But
I don't have any pets. That's the great debate in the house is whether or not to get a dog. So that's been the great debate. We don't know. So
yeah, and honestly, that's why he's a mini dachshund. When we first got him, we were still living in our apartment, and it was really important for us to get a dog, like a breed that could thrive in like 750 square feet.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like it's not fair to get like an 80-pound dog and have them live in like a 2-room apartment. Like that's just not.
Yeah. All I think of is the line from Aladdin when the genie is like, "Oh, there's great power in itty bitty living space." Yeah, that's what I think of when you said all of that. It's awesome. So you have a webcomic, JL8. How often does that webcomic come out? Yale?
Can you hear us?
Yale, did we lose you?
Hello?
Again, I was trying to.
Oh, no. I was asking about your web. Yeah, we can. Can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can. You kind of started like slowing down a bit. You know how it gets sometimes when like a connection kind of drops a bit.
Oh, okay. I was asking about your webcomic JL8. Like how often does it come out? What is it about? So the audience knows a little bit about it.
Okay, so kind of weird timing on that, which is to say right now it's actually on hiatus. It's actually been on hiatus since the beginning of 2020. Not for the reasons that might immediately come to mind, but with COVID, although that certainly didn't help any matters. Because I began JL8 back in about 2011, and it had been going pretty steadily since then. But eventually, and we're going to end up talking about this, I kind of started wanting to branch out into more creator-owned territory. So the final stuff I had done with JL8 at the end of 2019 felt like a really good, it was twofold. A, it was kind of a nice narrative stopping point, and B, the next thing, like the next part of the story is really involved. So I really wanted to basically do it in a way where I could just post it all at once as a 30, 40, maybe even like 50 page thing. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna step away from JL8 A while I work on this major update, but B while I also start working on this new creator-owned series that I've got going on.
And that is Forward the Horizon, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So
then COVID hit, and then all of 2020 basically became a mulligan.
Yeah.
So what I said in January of last year is now kind of like what I'm intending to tell everybody January of this year, because I just didn't really get that much done in 2020, the way I was expecting to get done. Yeah. So unfortunately, JL8 probably isn't returning until 2022. Forward the Horizon's probably not coming out until 2022. All these things, which, is a big bummer, but it makes no sense for me to like lie about it, be like, oh, don't worry about it, it's coming out in the summer, and then be like, oh, haha, I lied.
Which has actually happened to quite a few people, believe it or not. I've had people say, you know what, this is happening, and then they're like, never mind, I lied, it's not happening.
Oh, I mean, I've been guilty of that in my own past.
Oh, where, really?
I really thought, and it was never like a bold-faced lie.
Yeah.
But I was kind of knew that I was biting off maybe a little bit more than I could chew, or kind of like promising more than I could probably deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But I promised it anyway.
Are you a one-man like band per se? Like you're the writer, the artist, the producer, you get everything done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just me. Always has been, probably always will be. With the exception of my wife, Ashley, who will sometimes help out with like logistical stuff. Like maybe she'll help me pack orders to ship out or something like that. But creatively, when it comes to the actual creation of the comic, JL8 or Forward the Horizon, it's all just me.
And you like it like that because it's easier? Is it safe to say because it's easier just that way? That way you have your hands and know exactly what's happening. Your pages aren't like flying all over the place and having difference of opinions.
That's a really good question. I've been asked it a couple times. I'm not 100% sure if I've ever landed on the definitive answer. I'm sure that some of it is just me being kind of a control freak, which, I'm not particularly proud of. I don't think
that's not a bad thing. Sometimes that's not a bad thing.
It is. I don't like beat myself up over it, but I also don't puff my chest out and say that. But yeah, some of it's also a certain degree of, I mean, I guess it falls under the control freak banner, but I'm just a person, like, if something's going to fail, I'm more comfortable knowing that it was my fault than potentially having like some finger pointing stuff going on.
Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
If I were, let's say, because Forward the Horizon isn't out yet, let's say that I was working with a writer and it just bombed right out the gate. Like no one cared. It got panned in all the reviews, et cetera, et cetera. Even if all the people are talking about is like how crappy the art is, there's going to be a part of me that might be like, oh, well, it's the writer's fault or something, or vice versa. The writer would be like, this is all your fault, even though they're all criticizing the writing. And I don't need that drama,
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there are plenty of times where I'm like, oh man, like it would be really cool to have a creative partnership the way that like Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb, or Morrison and Quitely, or the gold standard Lee and Kirby,
Yeah.
because like it's cool, like those are legendary things, right? But I'm kind of content to, I guess, try to follow in the gigantic footsteps of Jeff Smith and Will Eisner and those guys, which I am not comparing myself to them. I don't want anyone out there to think that like, oh my god, this kid thinks that he's comparable to some of the all-time greats. But
I mean, you never know. But I would rather prefer it be like somebody behind after you going, I could be the next Yale or just like Yale Stewart, like you never know. You never know what's coming behind you as well. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to compare yourself or want to meet those levels, like those people, because one day somebody might be saying the same about you.
oh no, like you definitely got to shoot for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a Midwestern boy to the core.
Oh.
And when it comes to the Midwest, self-aggrandizement is like the most cardinal sin you can engage in, which makes it really hard to be like an independent artist and like trying to be on the hustle, because it's like trying to sell my stuff equates to like braggadocio in my mind, which like in the Midwest all you do is like pump the tires of everyone that you know, but the minute you try to pump your own tires, you become like a pariah. So that's been in neuroses that I've been fighting for the past 10 years as a creator. And I'm sure there are people like in Tulsa that are like, I know what he's talking about.
It makes sense, though. It makes complete sense. Now let's talk a little bit about Forward the Horizon. I know you said it's not out yet, but can you tell us a little bit about it and when hopefully we could be expecting it?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I guess I'll just start off with like with the release stuff, just because it's easier to talk about and get out of the way. And honestly, that's kind of up in the air because I'm still not sure if it's going to be a self-published thing or a traditionally published thing, because I am planning to pitch it to both Image and Dark Horse and kind of see where that goes.
Ooh, how exciting.
And obviously, if it were to get picked up by either of them, that would pretty legitimately affect the potential release schedule, because the way they solicit and everything, that you have to take like the entire comics distribution chain into account when it comes to that kind of thing. But if I do the self-publishing thing, it might release as soon as like later this year. But that being said, I think it's probably sometime within either maybe like winter quarter of this year or sometime in 2022. Again, basically breaking down, self-published would probably be late this year, whereas if it Image or Dark Horse or something like that, it would probably be 2022. But the comic itself, you're like, oh, what, cool, now actually tell me about it. The comic itself is kind of a fantasy adventure type thing, and it came from, this would have been, I guess, like 2018 now or something. But my wife and I were both really interested in getting back into playing tabletop role-play games. I haven't really played since high school. She had never really played, but she had always been interested. And anyone who's ever played tabletop role-playing games knows, it requires a decent number of people, and sometimes that can be really difficult. And long story short, we weren't really able to find anybody to play with.
Oh, that's too.
And
man, that sucks. Because
that
are like so much fun.
They are, and like she's actually managed to find people to play with since then. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so like we couldn't find anybody to play with, and that kind of, for whatever reason, that really stood out to me. That like that's kind of a recurring theme for me personally. Which isn't to say that I don't have friends. I have plenty of friends, but we don't always like overlap in our interests in the same way. So a lot of times, whether it's the tabletop role-playing thing or even like multiplayer online games like Destiny or Call of Duty or World of Warcraft or whatever, I always tend to kind of get into these things with a smaller like friend group than they're kind of meant for.
Yeah.
And I end up having to go on like looking for group sites or hope to meet people in the game, yada yada yada. So I was like, okay, maybe there's like a story there, as like someone who wants to be an adventurer but doesn't have an adventuring party. Like if you had a Dungeons and Dragons campaign where it was just one person who didn't have the like 4 to 6 fellow adventurers to go out. And I was like, well, that's kind of something. And then I was like, well, that's kind of, you could kind of do like an inversion of The Hobbit, because, Bilbo is sort of reluctant to go on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
The dwarves sort of just show up and drag him out of the Shire.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so like, what if we did something like that? So without going super roundabout about it, it's essentially a story about a young man who has grown up similar to me and a lot of people I know, essentially like reading comic books, like folklore, legends, like he's been told these things by adults in his village or whatever, that's got him really jazzed about going out and being an adventurer and being a hero. But he has no one to go with, so he just sets out on his own. And he's basically on a journey to just kind of like help people that he stumbles across the way that you do in tabletop role-playing games for the most part, while also trying to collect party members on the way. So it's kind of, honestly, in the like 2-sentence pitch form, it's kind of like One Piece by way of Tolkien. Like, if you've ever read One Piece, it's basically Luffy wanting to be a pirate but not having a crew.
Yeah.
So he just goes out by himself
and
starts accumulating a crew over the course of the series, which admittedly didn't occur to me until I was like 6 months into development. I was like, I'm just doing One Piece.
One Piece.
Except it's not like a hunt for a treasure or anything. He really is just out there wanting to be like these heroes from the stories. And like in this world, those stories are real, essentially.
Okay.
It's kind of the same way as like Kamala Khan wanting to be a superhero because she lives in the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like she becomes Miss Marvel because Miss Marvel is a heroine that she looked up to as a child.
Okay.
Right. So, and it's going to be a lot of kind of just like non sequitur adventure strips. A lot of like single issue, 1 to 3 issue long.
That's what I was getting ready to ask.
Arcs.
Yeah, if it was gonna be like a one shot.
Right.
Is it going to be
and
One
then
Piece?
on top of that, it's gonna
terrible.
Not try to like beat anybody over the head with it, but it's gonna kind of explore some of that stuff about sort of how it is when you're a solo player in online stuff, where like sometimes you meet people that it's like, cool, like let's do this raid and like we get along great, and then you learn that like they're straight up bigots or something. Or like you play with people that in like the D&D parlance, they're murder hobos, and it's like that's not your play style, right? So it's going to be kind of like him sort of like Goldilocksing his way through some of these people. Like there'll be times where he pairs up with adventurers that after that first adventure, he's like, no, thank you. There might be times where he pairs up with people and it's like, oh, like you might be my new best friend. And then who knows, maybe like 10 issues later, you realize, oh, this person is awful. Or even not, or even non less loaded things like, hey, that was a lot of fun. I really like this town. I'm going to hang out here for the rest of my life.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because, that dawned on me. I was actually playing Dragon Quest VII on my DS a little while ago. And that actually happens. Like one of the characters that you assume is going to be
forever
with you to the end is like, hey, you know what?
I like it here.
I just kind of want to stay here. I'm going to hang out here. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize that could happen, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You're
speaking to my soul, because I think I have like a lot of friends, but when it comes to playing video games, like I only play with 2 people ever. And sometimes like those multiplayer games, it's like so tough. Because you definitely do need like 4 or 5 people to help you
Yeah.
get through it.
Yeah.
And the tabletop too, like we do zombie side. And
Hmm.
we're doing D&D online for a while, and it was great and everything, but people can't make it because of parties, or
Oh yeah. Yeah.
something's happening. So that totally speaks to my life.
Yeah. I mean, especially once you get older,
Yeah.
like it's one thing when you're like the kids in Stranger Things where it's like you're 10, 11, 12 years old, and
Yeah.
that's just how you spend your weekends is, playing Dungeons and Dragons or video games or whatever it is
Mhm.
with your buddies because you've got no other
Yeah.
responsibilities.
And the next thing you
But,
know,
once you hit a certain age, it's like, oh, people have,
yeah.
work commitments, they might have children,
Yeah.
Those
all these
terrible
different
children.
things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it becomes really, really tricky. And yeah, I kind of wanted to sort of explore that a little
Yeah.
bit.
I like that concept a lot. It's definitely out of the box. It's not anything I've really thought about as far as like a story wise. So I'm interested in seeing this sci-fi-ish fantasy Luffy version of this character going through his motions. Um so you said hopefully winter of this year, or like towards the back end of winter, because we're technically in winter now. Is when we
Yeah,
No.
but
expect this.
yeah, assuming that I self-publish it, if it does get picked up by Image or Dark Horse or something like that, it would probably be sometime in 2022. Which truthfully, I would rather that be how it comes into the world, because self-publishing is really hard. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
So obviously, if I could have
Is
the
it?
lovely people at Image handling distribution and all that kind of stuff,
it makes it a
cool.
little
Yeah.
easier. Yeah. We actually have a chat going, and there's you seem to have someone who's like super interested in it. They did suggest to try to go with Dark Horse over the other. Over the
Yeah.
other, they seem to like Dark Horse a little better. But there it is, Sean. Go with Dark Horse, he said, and he actually likes the concept a lot. He says that is a cool concept. I love it. It's hilarious. So you have a fan.
Yeah, no, I
Adding
mean
a
that's
fan
great
to
to
the
hear
list.
because like
Um,
for in anything, whether it's being a cartoonist or being a podcaster or whatever, like jumping from a thing that has been doing fine and is successful to something entirely new is always super scary.
yeah.
Like, I could theoretically do JL8 for the rest of my life. Because it's comfortable. I know that I'm relatively good at it. People seem to enjoy it. But at the same time, there's only so far I can take JL8 in terms of like a career because I can't monetize it. Like those characters don't belong to me.
Yeah.
DC isn't paying me to make it. So I just kind of need to find something new. But in so doing, not only is it something new, it's not like I'm doing kind of like a Squadron Supreme type thing here. It's not different superheroes as kids on a playground,
Mhm.
right? Because Eric Larson actually kind of suggested that at one point, like, why don't you just change them from being the DC characters and just make your own superhero characters and do the comic that way?
Oh wow.
To which I replied, like, I think that the success of JL8 hinges on them being the characters that people recognize.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it carries the same appeal,
Right.
carries the same weight
That makes sense. Yeah.
if they're just kind of stand-in characters.
Well, isn't that
Um,
kind of, and I could be wrong, but my understanding is that's sort of the story of Rick and Morty. That it was based on Back to the Future, Doc and Marty, and they
Right.
wanted to make it, and they were like, "Oh, can't we kind of twist this around and make it our own?"
Yeah.
So, but I get what you're saying. It would take more work because you're dealing with pre-established, like ongoing fan base, like, DC characters that have been around forever.
And like I think there's just more of an intrinsic market
Mm.
for something like Rick and Morty. Just like the concept of the kind of like curmudgeonly scientist and his young ward kind of thing. Whereas I think if I did do, if I Rick and Mortify, essentially, like
I like that, by the way.
I think I would basically have to find an entirely different audience. Like I think it would still do well, let's say in the same vein as like the Captain Underpants books, or something like that. Like it might do really well as like a young readers kind of thing, or like a comic that people buy as part of like the Scholastic Book Fair. But I'm not sure if the people who currently enjoy JL8 would be as keen on it. And like that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
It just kind of is something that I've observed. And like I guess what it also boils down to is I don't have any interest in working on it if it's not those characters. Like the only reason I did it at all was because I thought it was fun to take these characters that I care about and kind of, bend them and twist them, and I'm playing with action figures.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, like if I'm gonna build my own action figures to play with, I'd rather it be in just a kind of different world than that. Hence Forward the Horizon. And like the thing about Forward the Horizon, even though it is very different, it's also really similar in a lot of ways. Like when you get down to like thematic type stuff, I don't think that I could ever write anything that doesn't deal with like interpersonal relationships, that doesn't deal with things like mental and emotional health, that doesn't deal with things like legacy isn't really like the right term, but I can't really think of like a better one, but kind of like destiny or something like that, which isn't super heavily talked about in JL8 yet, but like even the stuff in Diana's birthday party, the fact that like Diana isn't crazy about the idea of like being an Amazonian princess. Like she has made up her mind that, she sees that as less than ideal. She pushes back really hard on it, et cetera, et cetera. And, that's basically predetermination. Like it's, you have been born into this bloodline. This is what you have to grow up to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like you can touch on that stuff with Clark. You can touch on that stuff with Bruce. You can touch on that stuff with any of them, really. But yeah, like these are all things, they're very broad stroke, but I think if people kind of like sat back and really analyzed why they enjoy JL8, I think it would kind of boil down to that stuff. Like I like the way, or at least this is what people have told me, is like I really like the relationships. I really like how Clark and Bruce operate off of each other. I really like how Barry and Hal and John interact with each other. And it's like, yeah, like they're in those costumes, but like you're really just enjoying like character tropes and stuff like that. You're enjoying behaviors that you feel are true, that you've probably seen in your own life through various friends that or family members that or whatever. Because like Bruce isn't a terribly unique kid in terms of his behavior. Like I think we've all kind of known the sort of like arm's length, broody, kind of like self-important kid.
Maybe a little spoiled.
Right. Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying that Bruce is an every kid, but I think these characters work because they reflect just enough of stuff you see throughout the course of your life that you can kind of latch on to that and feel like them. And like that goes beyond superheroes, like the popularity of like The Office or Friends or Seinfeld. Probably less so Seinfeld. But like a lot of it really is like, oh, you know, how many people do you hear say like, I'm such a Samantha, oh, you're such a Carrie,
Yeah.
you're such a, those are the only two that I know from Sex and the City. But like, because people like feeling like they know those people, you know, I see that happen with Jail 8 all the time, where it's like people will tag their friends in like a Hal and Barry and John strip and be like, this is you and Teddy and George.
Yeah.
Or something.
I mean,
you know, like
Teddy.
it's really
the way that these three characters are interacting, like this is exactly how you guys either used to act when you were this age, or this is exactly how you guys act now if you were a little bit more immature kind of thing. So, you know, I think that you're going to see a lot of that even in stuff like Forward the Horizon. Like,
God, yeah, because
you're
it's
going to see
relatable and
characters-
approachable, and like you can find yourself or someone you know in that character. Is that what, like, that's basically what you're saying, that Forward the Horizon?
Yeah, you know, like I'm not going in with characters, and not to say that these characters won't show up, but like I don't think that there'll be these characters that are like really like grand archetype,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like really traditional fantasy type stuff where it's like no one talks that way, or no one thinks that way, or no one acts that way in real life. I just prefer more grounded characters in terms of like personalities and decision making.
Yeah.
Like even if you had a character as over the top as like Doctor Doom, like Silver Age Doctor Doom, you can kind of get in there, get into that head, and kind of start making sense of it. And you know, like people have done that. Lee and Kirby have done that. Bendis has done that. And you realize like, oh yeah, like he seems kind of outrageous, but he's really just a guy who's just really narcissistic and really, you know, just very self-confident. And basically it boils down to like he thinks that he should rule the world because no one could do it better than him. Which, you know, I think we all probably know someone kind of like that. Maybe not in the scope of like running the world, but we all have, to kind of point the, you know, turn the mirror on myself, that kind of like, I want to do everything myself, almost to a fault. And that's why I think a lot of people look to Doctor Doom and they kind of, that's why he's like stood the test of time, right? As opposed to just some, you know, villain of the week who's like, I'm going to take over the world. Okay, why? Because I'm gonna. It's like, well, that's not terribly, you know, that's not terribly engaging or interesting or anything like that.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, Yale, we've come to the end of the show. Tell everybody where they can find you, your artwork. It goes by quick, like it really does. It always goes by so quick. Your artwork and where they can try to see updates on Forward the Horizon.
Yeah, so my Twitter and Instagram handles are both just my name, Yale Stewart, flat out. So that's the easy one. For JL8 stuff, there's the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/JL8comic LOL. If Tumblr is your thing, because I still do Tumblr, because that's where JL8 actually started, was on Tumblr. JL8comic.tumblr.com is a fine place to check it out as well. For Forward the Horizon stuff, there isn't really a set location for that, but I work on it pretty regularly on my Twitch stream. I've started working on Twitch starting, I guess, at like the beginning of December, and like my Twitch stream is literally just me turning the camera on while I work.
Oh, that's
every day.
Cool. Yeah, I like that.
So, and that's just twitch.tv/Yale Stewart. You can come on by and watch me work on it in real time. I, you know, work on Forward the Horizon. I'm planning to get back to working on JL8 also on Twitch. You can see me work on commissions on occasion, all that kind of stuff.
What was that Twitch? You said it was Twitch TV/Yale Stewart?
Yeah, so again, just basically twitch.tv/my name.
Okay, cool.
Yale Stewart.
I'll get all those links out there to everyone so they can follow and keep up to date and just watch your stuff, because I mean that's pretty cool that you're on Twitch now. I like that. I love seeing people do their art. It's so soothing to watch people work on their art on Twitch.
You know what? I've been hearing that a lot, like the soothing thing. I find that really interesting that so many people feel that way, and it actually is really cool. Like a lot of creators have moved over to Twitch
Yeah.
lately. You know, like I'm kind of late to the party, but I think it's really great for a plethora of reasons. I think it's great to, you know, get people who are interested in maybe becoming a cartoonist. You know, it's kind of educational for them.
Mm-hmm.
And selfishly, I think it's a great way to kind of bring back the value to art. You know, like I think a lot of people, and I'm not trying to sound curmudgeonly here, but I think a lot of people, you know, with the advent of the internet and how easy it is to see everything all the time for free, people don't quite realize like how much effort goes into making a single page of a comic.
Yeah, no, I don't think
you
that's
know what
actually
I mean?
curmudgeon. I 100% agree with that statement, like all the
So
way.
I'm really hoping that like with the Twitch streaming and stuff, people realize like, oh, I've been watching him for like 2 straight days at 8 hours a clip, and he just finished that one page.
Yep. Somebody,
Sean, maybe there's a reason comics should be, you know, $4 a pop, $5 a pop.
Sean just wrote, it's kind of like watching Bob Ross. It is. It's like the joy of painting, but like the joy of art. Period. You know, I don't know. I love Bob
Ross.
The
patron saint,
yeah,
man.
exactly.
Like, we all walk in the shadow of him.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think it does. Sean kind of hit the nail on the head there, because I think that's where it comes from for me, because I loved watching The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross.
Same.
Now with artists like yourself,
PBS kid growing up.
Exactly. Me too, 100%. So, you know, with artists like yourself on Twitch now, it's kind of the same. Well, not kind of. I feel like it is the same way, except your medium is just a little different, and that's about it. But it is soothing, and it's so, I don't know, it's so fun and relaxing at the same time. I love it. I'm glad that you're on Twitch. I'm actually gonna head over there and give you a follow once we're done here.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean the only difference is like I'm not teaching you how to draw while I'm drawing, but yeah, I mean people still seem to really enjoy watching it. Like, you know, I enjoy watching other people do it. You know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why do people like watching me, even though I like watching everybody else? And it's like, well, you know,
it's the same reason. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me, Yale. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. Everybody go. We're putting in the links everywhere. We're probably going to put the links in the description. Go follow Yale now that he's on Twitch. Go watch him on Twitch and be soothed and calm throughout your day. And as always, guys, like, share, subscribe, all that good jazz that comes with being on the interwebs. And I will see the interwebs. And I will see you guys next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. See everybody next week, Wednesday, 6 o'clock, Eastern Standard Time.
We got announcer voices now. That's awesome.